Vice President Harris making a visit to the southern border today, her first visit in more than 3 years. She's visiting a town just south of Tucson, which has become a hub for processing and releasing migrants. The vice president has been criticized by former President Trump and Republicans for what they call her progressive immigration policies under President Biden. The vice president, though, criticizing Republicans for killing a bipartisan border compromise by the Senate earlier this year. So let's bring in NewsNation's Allie Bradley, who is following the vice president today, is live for us there in Douglas, Arizona. And Allie, some say this visit has been a long time coming.
Yeah, some are saying that, Nicole. I would say just about every person down here in Cochise County would say that, because they have been extending the invitation to the vice president for 3.5 years. The sheriff here is saying they welcome the opportunity for her to be here, but they're a little bit frustrated, too, because they are still dealing with a lot of problems. I want to show you one of the problems that I actually just encountered here. This is about 1.9 miles away from where I'm standing. It only took me 3 minutes to drive back to this spot after I witnessed 2 men being escorted out of the brush by Border Patrol. They were trying to evade after they just jumped the border wall illegally, and they had several agents out there searching for them, and they were successful in apprehending these 2 individuals. They were removed, and now they will be processed for removal ultimately. Now, this underscores really the issues down here. Congress reporting that around 2 million gotaways have been recorded. These men would have been gotaways had Border Patrol not gotten them. So good to see Border Patrol out there on the job. The vice president, though, is slated to be here later this afternoon in the county in Douglas. It's just a town of about 15,500 people. Less than 16,000 people live here, and it became a drop-off hub for Border Patrol to release migrants who have been processed to the streets, and then they were transported north to NGOs in Tucson and Phoenix. So for the majority of this administration's term, both Vice President Harris and President Biden have been very compassionate when it comes to the southern border. They have kept detention at a minimum. They've leaned heavily on parole programs as legal pathways, and they've provided millions in federal funding to volunteer groups. But for 3+ years, nothing was done when it came to cutting down on crossings. Those problems persisted. They still persist today. And that's been crippling border communities in Texas, New Mexico, California, and Arizona. And NewsNation was there each and every day for it. When pressed on the millions of migrants who have poured across the southern border under this administration, or the lack of vetting in the processing, Vice President Harris points to the failed bipartisan border bill. She said she would make sure that it passed. Now, to be clear here, this was a bill that was backed by the Border Patrol Union, but it was widely and heavily opposed by the National Sheriff's Association.
This is a real issue that's affecting Americans, my citizens, throughout this whole country. But until we start working together, until she engages sheriffs, mayors, police chiefs, our state legislative folks, and our governors, we're never going to fix it.
The message is she's seeking compromise. She does care about border security, but she's open to a resolution that involves all sides of the government, which would finally bring some stability to the border.
Okay, so, Nicole, I mentioned that there are some frustration down here. Sheriff Daniels, he says that he hopes that when she leaves today, that she promises to have a clear and open line of communication, because he has not had one conversation with Biden or Harris over the last 3.5 years. He is the one who will be hosting Harris for that border tour along the border wall later this afternoon, Nicole.
All right, so, Allie, any word on what we can expect to hear today from the vice president?
Yeah, so let's start with what we're going to see, because I just walked into the building. The stage is already set, and they've got big poster boards that say border security and stability. So they are fully going to be focusing on the border aspect down here at the southern border. But one of the other big things that she's going to be focusing on, because she is making a trip to the port down here in Douglas, is the flow of fentanyl. Now, she is expected to announce additional Border Patrol agents that she would be hiring, additional funding for border security, and that includes screening technology for the interdiction of fentanyl. We know that that is a big problem here in the Tucson sector. The majority of fentanyl was seized in this sector, and so that is one of the things that we will expect. Of course, when it comes to what the administration has done, we know that President Biden ultimately signed an executive action to really tamp down on the asylum seekers and get a hold of what is going on down here at the southern border. But that was 3.5 years of not really doing anything, despite Democrats being in control of Congress for the first 2 years of this administration. There was no border legislation negotiated or passed under this administration. So then all of a sudden, with a kind of wave of the wand and the signing of the pen, the border gets kind of under control. So we do expect Kamala Harris to be down here, Nicole, later this afternoon, probably around 2 or 3. She's slated to be landing in this area.
All right. We know you will cover it all. Allie Bradley live for us there in Arizona. Thank you.